So for the next presentation, if we have a case of fever, we know that we won't be able to export for quite some time and that we'll have a surplus of animals to manage. So last year, we had a project with the collaboration of Forest Lavoie Conseil to start up a reflection and to give us tools to see how we can go about this surplus of animals in a northern manner. So next speaker, Hélène Méthot. Hélène has a degree from Laval University, has a BA and a master's in agronomy, and she's a member of the Agronomists of Society of Quebec. She's an expert in the ovine industry in Quebec after being a coordinator for research and development for 4 years. In the past 10 years, Hélène has been appointed as a coordinator of the ovine industry of Quebec and chair of the Roundtable of Chain of Value of Canada. In the year 2021, she continued professionally as a consultant, mainly within the agro-food sector in Canada. She has collaborated a lot with Forest Lavoie Conseil. In 2023, she started up an organization on veterinary services, and in September of 2024, she's been appointed as an associate at the Lavoie Group. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here this morning with you. My role today is to share the works that have been carried out by the pilot committee, and a special project of the file, identifying the key factors for crisis management in a structured manner and the action plan that was set up around that. And I will also will need Sophie. She was good at that last year, wasn't she? The screen on the other side. Okay, there we go. So you have seen in the past, I'm sure, this slide. It is an extract of a presentation of the Meat Council of Canada that was given last year with different scenarios. There were many of them. What is common to all these scenarios, though, is the surplus management phase. So no matter what comes later, there'll be a big market shares that will have to be managed. And depending on the situation regarding distribution of cases, numbers, etc., there will be a next phase that will be more or less lengthy, whereby there will be some adjustments that will be done regarding the size of the herd. This project was the initiative of the EQSP. So it was the initiative of EQSP under the coordination of Martin, who was most available. Thank you again, Martin. In our team at Forest Lavoie, there's Gilbert Lavoie and myself who have worked on that file, and we have had the help of Martin, Michel Bouchard, and Émilie, and that was done thanks to a financial support from Agri-Food Canada. So the objectives were very practical within this project. We wanted to agree through a consensus amongst the industry people on the framework regarding crisis management that would be equitable and efficient. We wanted to have a structured process to avoid any panic as much as possible. So we have to have a structured structure. And the objective is to assure the capacity of breeders to meet their obligations with respect to their animals at all times in the surplus elimination process. We want to dwell on the well-being of animals, and there's a risk for the industry in this phase of surplus of animals management period. Practically speaking, we want to maintain as much as possible the functional structures of the industry. We want to rebound when the market picks up. So we talk about the manpower and the slaughterhouses that had concerns in terms of labor, the transportation network. So the pilot committee reflections made up of the people here was really as to how we can maintain daily activities as close as possible as to ordinary life, to enhance the resources at hand, and to make sure that we use the tools that are already there. I want to thank again the people on the committee that were very generous with their time and their expertise. It was very efficient work. And also a wink to Christian Bluet, Daniel Blais, and François Cardinal. They had some time, some free time, and added their little project on the side, developing a tool that we made together and that I'll present to you in a minute. In the procedure, the pilot committee met very often. We met during the meetings, and there were some control points to make sure people would adhere more broadly in the industry. So more than 125 people were met during this time. We had two group meetings to present the orientations that had been looked at by the pilot committee. And after that, we reviewed all these people individually or by their businesses to get their concerns, ideas, so as to nurture the work of the pilot committee. So thank you to all these people. Now, what I am going to present are the great broad conclusions of the pilot committee that came up with a consensus. So clearly, in all this dynamics, we can have an action plan, all that, but there's a lot of unforeseeable events. We will have various decisional processes that will have to be implemented, and these processes will always go back to the industry that will be in charge and responsible of their own choices. So the plan that is proposed is made up of 4 key factors that have been identified by the pilot committee. So we were talking about panic and counter-panic, so we need a legal framework to make sure that everything will be done in an ordered manner. We need a financial framework. We want to make sure that all animals can eat every day. We need an operational unit when we have the industry that makes decisions, for example, to reduce by 50% the market shares. We need people to put that into place. And when we were looking at the crisis management contexts in other countries, decision-making cells are always separated from operational cells. We don't want to mix politics with operations. So this operational team will concretize the decisions made by the industry, and they need to have tools and communications. And there will always be a dynamic process there, because the industry wants to make sure that the match plan is always the best. They want to be able to react rapidly and to make orders, to send orders to the operational team. So how, when I talk about the legal framework, how is going to be deployed? Well, we have extraordinary people in our marketing team for the crisis team. It's true for PPA, but in any other context, there are key elements that we have to foresee in this convention. We need to define the percentage of the diminution of the target numbers. There is a question of a delay in time. We're also concerned regarding the American price references. If their industry is affected, we need a plan B to work on our prices as well. And one concern was that if we want to be very well structured, that breeders will not depend on the destination of their animals. If it's a matter of food or elimination, all producers should receive the same price for their animal, no matter the destination. So we need a pool system regarding prices. And since we have issues, national issues around this crisis, all our actions in Quebec must be coherent with what is being done throughout Canada. Under this convention, we need concrete tools, so we need regulations to control hog variations to generate results rapidly. And Sophie mentioned it as well, the redeployment of animals. It's on a voluntary basis now. The recommendation of the pilot committees to agree on and to better structure these movements. It's a matter of risk management, basically. In perspective, more long-term perspective, in the first month, we managed the market shares, but after that, we'll have questions on the herds, and we'll have to elaborate a strategy of production in order to be coherent with respect to what we are looking for in our strategy. All these structures, the parameters, the financial elements, all this should be thought up in terms of the success factors in order to have a recovery. One of the tools that were looked at were to work with indications that already exist in matters of dangerosity. The industry knows that better than I. And to come up with a list in order to have a list of priorities for outputs. It doesn't mean that people will have to go out with a high index, but entrepreneurs, they are free to stay in the business or not. They need to have all the pertinent information in order to know if they will have a good business context that will allow them to have success when recovery comes. So we are talking about money, of course. The objective is short-term to make sure that businesses and particular farms have the financial support to pay their people so they can come to work in the morning. So it's an issue that means that things have to be done rapidly. And it should be known beforehand, before being in a PPA context. We must imagine that twofold. We were talking about the two phases earlier with the graph. There is a phase where we eliminate rapidly the market shares in surplus. And after that, there is a reflection around the reduction of the sires herd with certain parameters. There will be efforts from the industry. There might be governmental measures that will be in place. So there must be a conversation, ongoing conversation between all these people to make sure there is a coherence, that the outcomes are efficient, and that the results are what we want to be. Regarding the operational cell, we want to make more concrete the necessary measure to reach the objectives set by the industry. This should be linked to the emergency plan of the EQSP. They're used to that. Martin has a lot of free time, as we know. It will complete his little agenda. So we must add that to this. We have to look at the structure of the organization as well. There's a little reflection here to avoid repetition of the same works. Martin should look at that to make sure that it works well. Beyond the operational decisions that have to be made by this cell, the cell will have a capital role to circulate the information. We must receive and distribute the information. The objective is that the decision-making bodies within the industry have all the information as precise as possible in real time so they can make the right decisions. We have to need good communication channels around the cells with everyone from the industry. We have names here, but it's only a suggestion. The aim of the committee is that we must understand the profile of expertise that we are looking for. We are looking for people that will have a very acute perspective in the operation and daily lives of our activities. They must be able to make decisions in terms of transportation, etc. You have a suggestion here, but the organization will be free to identify who they wish. But you can see that some people have changed in their roles. They might be more available for something more than another. So there's another action that is recommended here is to have a yearly meeting, PPA or non-PPA, but this cell should meet once a year to make sure that we have all the good players around the tables. If some have left, what is the expertise that is now lacking that we should be looking for? And there's also the work to distribute tasks. Who will update the tools? Who will make what decisions when the situation needs it? Who will be in charge of communication with the other teams of the plan? So there's a full work of planning that has to be done, so to be ready when we might need this strategy of intervention. Communication is very important. I have mentioned that often. So we have a lot of reflection. How can we make sure that all those in need of information receives it? Well, there are some consultants in the field, a lot of actors, people who will be working on a daily basis with breeders. They must have the information, but beyond that, they must be prepared to accompany people who will be going through distress and various problems. We talk about animals, money, but we have human beings here as well. And we must ideally make sure that these people have the tools to identify those who are going through distressful situation and may need help at the right time. The EQSP has started making some work to regroup the information, and in ideal world, you wouldn't have 125 websites to follow in order to know what's happening. So there's an initiative in place. It's been put there because it's a key element of the success of the action plan, and the committee has decided to put it in the list of the to-do list. We also have some groups on the ground, the control group of the SRP. These people could play a role, perhaps, maybe others also. We must be really looking at everything, all the organizations, the persons who could contribute to distributing information will be put to play. We want to use the consult services. Maybe there could be a training session offered to all consultants, even if they do very little of that. If they see one breeder or two, well, still, it is a little victory to have the information there, because we want this to come up rapidly to the producers. They must have a high level of trust for them to believe that the industry knows what it's doing when it's possible to know, because there's a lot of unknown. But we need to be clear with our match point to make sure that people have their things at hand, to maintain trust, to make sure that order is maintained in the way we do things. And the breeders will have difficult decisions to make. And it's not when we will ask them to make a decision that they should start thinking about it. There's a lot of accompanying work that can be done, that must be done with the entrepreneurs. Communications is twofold within the industry, but also a communication plan towards the media and the public. I talked about that earlier. It's a matter of reputation regarding animal welfare, the economic catastrophe behind it, regarding the environment. There might be some concerns with respect to the quality of the meat, so we must be ready to reassure the public in general. And finally, the committee has identified two pertinent tools for the industry. We have worked to develop a little checklist for farmers. It is the first phase of the creation of a continuity plan for our activities. It's pertinent for any kind of businesses, any contacts. In this case, for the PPA, it is a tool that is meant for farmers as such. It is a series of questions to invite people to reflect, to see if they have a plan B. It can be as silly as, do we have the number of the bank account to pay for animal feed if the person is not ready, is not available? I mean, there are more profound issues at times, but there are very practical and simple issues that we have to look at also. So this little guide, this little checklist can help you looking into all the little questions. And the little night project for Daniel, Christian, and François, it is a tool. People have realized that the cell will need a tool to index all the events, the consequences, decisions that will be made. So we have an Excel tool that will help us follow up on all these issues and give us control points. For example, week 4, after the declaration of the first case of swine fever, well, how long is it going to last? Maybe we should consider abortions for sows in the first quarter of gestation, maybe. So we must make decisions as things go along. So we have control points that have been identified, so we ask the right questions at the right time. We have also developed a calculator of population flows. For example, week 12, if the decision-making committee asked to eliminate 25% of piglets commercially, what impact will this have on the other animals and the amount of hogs that I will market? So it can help us follow the cumulative effect of the decisions that will be made on the available animals for marketing afterwards. The operational cell, we will need a person in charge of this tool to understand it well and keep it updated. Regarding the checklist, well, we need to distribute it to the breeders. It's never lost. If we are happy enough to have no fever, well, it won't be lost because the breeders will have a tool to use. Regarding slaughtering and carcass disposal, it wasn't really discussed within the committee recently, but it's a very important issue. So we decided to put it back into the action plan to make sure it is very clear for everyone. It's a priority issue. And we want to have a target capacity for slaughtering, humane, and that it should be regionally distributed in a broadened manner. We don't want to have slaughters only in the red zones, and then we can't send any animal there. So we want to redistribute that throughout the territory and in an ordained manner. The carcass disposal in 2021-22, we had been working on another project. Sophie mentioned it also. It was a big problem, elimination, disposal of carcass. Marilyn will be talking about that, where we're up to, what we're up to there this afternoon. We hope to have solutions for that. It has to be solved rapidly. In the discussions, the slaughterhouses people mentioned some concerns of magnitude regarding their capacity for recovery after a long haul, a long stop that requires some laying off labor. If we have businesses relying on foreign workers for their operations and they must start back to square one with the forms to write out, etc., it can take some time. So there was a concern there with respect to that. After that, there's a melting pot of other things that we have to look at. Some questions we have to ask. Biosafety, is it as good as it should be to protect our herds? With the fever evolving, we saw that in the first conference. We can see it in many places. Is it still pertinent to have it to make sure it is a obligatory declaration disease? And the MAPAC, there had been some initiatives to identify some safety fees. Do we have all the tools for that? To manage as well as possible this situation. We imagine that in a crisis situation, there will be many programs put into place, the agri this and the agri that. Maybe it would be a good idea to make a full list of all these programs so people could have access rapidly on all the possibilities for support that they can have. Wild boars, there was all the question of the smaller breeders. Would we have some regulatory tools that would help us set up a register to make quick interventions easier for investigations, for example, other things. All this action plan should always be thought up in terms of the success factors, key factors, which are the followings. The health status. Do we have a possibility to improve the health status and to make a collective gain? And what is to come next, the geographical location of breeders, the infrastructure quality, were there recent investments, and the capacity of all the question of profitability. It is an entrepreneur's decision, but people must have the right information in order to go forward. And finally, I have to say again, it was a tremendous collaboration in the pilot committee and within the industry. People were very transparent, very open with respect to their information. It helped a lot, but a lot of work remains to be done, and things have happened since we completed the project in last March. Some elements have continued to evolve. Certainly, Martin can give us some answers if needed. There's a lot of work to do still. And regarding the financial and legal frameworks, we know that takes time. There are a lot of phases, so better start early. And information will be the key for our success, for a good teamwork. Thank you.